Today on the newscast, my exclusive interview with former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett. We covered a lot of ground, and you'll hear what we talked about next. Hey folks, Erick Stakelbeck here. Welcome to the Watchman Newscast, and welcome to the Stakelbeck Tonight set here in Dallas-Fort Worth. Of course, my brand new nightly show, Stakelbeck Tonight, airing every Monday through Friday on TBN, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time and 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We've got a re-air every night as well. But a recent guest from this week on Stakelbeck Tonight, former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett. Folks, what an interview. We covered a lot of ground in a 30-minute interview. Now, today on the newscast, I'm bringing you a condensed version with the former Prime Minister. But where to begin? Number one, the diplomatic assault against Israel. Just this week, we had the International Criminal Court announcing it's going to seek arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. We have the death of Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi, and then he's mourned and even celebrated at the UN. The list goes on. The tension with the Biden administration, Iran and its proxies ramping up their attacks against Israel. What does it all mean? What comes next? And what should Israel's posture be going forward? Also, his personal background, what drives him. These are just some of the topics I covered with former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett. We're going to break it down in a minute with the former Prime Minister. But up first, a lot of people have been asking me on every newscast here on YouTube, how can I help? The comments every day are filled with that. How can I help Israel? I see the world, global anti-Semitism on the rise. I see Israel's enemies gathering on its borders. What can I do? Well, folks, a great way to stand with Israel and to fulfill that biblical mandate laid out in Genesis 12:3 to bless the people of Israel is to connect with my good friends at Artza. They're the sponsor for today's newscast. You can check them out at artzabox.com. And really an offer, I believe, for such a time as this, a time where tourism to Israel has slowed to a trickle for obvious reasons. There's a war going on right now, but tourism and people around the world, believers especially around the world, visiting Israel is one of the main drivers behind the Israeli economy. So what we have right now are Israeli small businesses struggling, Israeli artisans, entrepreneurs struggling under the current circumstances. This is where Artza comes in. Artza boxes are filled with handcrafted, top-notch, beautiful products made in Israel by Israeli small businesses and artisans and delivered to your doorstep. It's very difficult right now to get to Israel, obviously, as a tourist, as a visitor, but you can bring Israel to your doorstep, the sights, the sounds, the smells of the Holy Land, and you're supporting Israel to boot because you're supporting Israeli small businesses in their time of greatest need. Artzabox.com. Check it out, folks, and for a 10% discount, use the discount code WATCHMAN. That's M-A-N, Watchman, for a discount on your Artza box subscription. Hey, this is a great top-notch product that I believe in. I've known the team at Artza for 4 years now. We've been working together, and the founder of Artza right now is serving in the Israel Defense Forces Reserve. So you are supporting a very good cause and getting a great product when you stand with Artza. Okay, that exclusive interview with former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett. Folks, he had a lot to say, a lot to unpack in our time together. Take a look. Former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, thanks so much for joining us. And what a time to have you come to us here as a Rafah operation may be looming. Hamas's 4 remaining battalions in that city. You know this very well, serving in an elite special forces unit, serving as defense minister, serving as prime minister. Can you tell everyone why Hamas will not stop? They're driven by an ideology that, if they're left alive, they will no doubt try to duplicate October 7th and many more.
Exactly. Hamas is based on a very radical jihadist ideology, which is explicit in their own constitution. You know, the United States has a constitution, so does Hamas. Within Hamas's constitution, beyond a lot of crazy stuff, one of the things they say there is they got to kill the Jews. And if there's a Jew hiding behind a stone, let the tree come and say, come here and kill the Jew. This is in their constitution. So this is what Hamas is about, and there's no middle way, there's no peace to be reached with someone who wants to destroy you. That's why this ought to be a fairly straightforward thing. Back Israel, we're fighting radical Islam and jihad on behalf of the entire world. We expect the United States of America to stand behind us and help.
There shouldn't be any confusion here, and yet there seems to be some daylight perhaps emerging between the U.S. government right now and Israel. How concerned are you? We had obviously the recent comments by President Biden saying he would withhold an arms shipment to Israel over Rafah. How concerned are you, and not even about the literal daylight, but the perception of daylight between Israel and America that our shared enemies like the Iranian regime are noticing?
I think any perceived daylight between the United States and Israel is extremely harmful in several ways. First of all, our enemies see it, and it encourages our enemies, and they think that if they just continue fighting a bit, they'll ultimately get let off the hook. Secondly, our allies in the region also see it. And third, I think just in terms of the moral aspect of it, I mean, imagine after D-Day, let's say 5 months after D-Day in World War II, at some point you'd stop pushing into Nazi Germany and just stop, or be asked to not to have zero casualties, civilian casualties. That's not how wars work, especially given that Hamas is using its own people as human shields. So I think the best thing for everyone is to let Israel get the job done as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it's common sense that you're sharing in times where common sense is not so common. By the way, we still have many hostages in Gaza. What do you think the approach should be there from Israel? Because sadly, here in the United States, we're not hearing about the hostages nearly enough like we should be. And by the way, there are still American hostages there in Hamas captivity as well.
This is absolutely crazy. These hostages are mainly people, citizens, that were pulled out of their beds on the morning of October 7th by these Hamas monsters, and are left in underground tunnels all across the Gaza. And my approach is fairly simple. Israel should have only one option for the leader of Hamas, Yahya Sinwar. Here's the deal. If you surrender, you raise a white flag, you release all the hostages, we will let all of you get on a boat and get out of Gaza alive. Otherwise, we're coming to kill all of you, to the very last one of you, or at least the vast majority. And then tell the military, go ahead and get the job done. Don't stop until they raise a white flag. Total surrender was an approach. Unfortunately, I have to say, I don't understand why my own government is vacillating on this. We should have taken Rafah 4 months ago. The rest of Gaza, you don't run wars by stopping in the middle or wavering. You have to have it continuous and forceful.
Yeah, that's an interesting point in that, look, it seems that the offensive in Gaza has stalled a bit over the past few months. Do you get that sense? How much of that is due to international pressure on Israel?
Well, it's no secret that about 3-4 months ago, things have slowed down, and that's a profound mistake. Imagine a boxing match where you hit the other guy, but every time he gets hit, you let him rest for a few days and then continue the match. That's not how you win. You win by zeroing in after he's hit with another hit and another hit until the enemy collapses. That's the only way to win wars. I think this is due to various factors, among them international pressure, and I don't think we should abide to that international pressure. Yeah. We need to do what's right for Israel.
April 13th, 2024, also a pivotal date in terms of not only Israel's security, but world security, when the Iranian regime, for the first time, directly launched over 300 projectiles at the Jewish state. Do you get the sense that since then, and by the way, 99% intercepted, incredible, but do you get the sense that since that onslaught by Iran, that Iran's regime is emboldened, that they think, hey, we got away with it, and perhaps we can do this again?
I think so. I believe that Iran has been hitting Israel for the past 30 years through its arms. It's like an octopus of terror. It has an arm in Lebanon called Hezbollah, an arm in Gaza, an arm in Syria, an arm in Iraq, in Yemen, the Houthis, and they just go on without paying a price.
The most lethal tentacle of this Iranian regime octopus is Hezbollah in the north. We've got tens of thousands of Israelis evacuated right now from their homes in the north near the Lebanon border. No clear date on when they can return home. And Hezbollah, we talk about Iran being emboldened. Hezbollah has increased its attacks in the past few weeks. How do you think Israel should deal with Hezbollah, which is such a serious, serious threat?
Well, Hezbollah claims that it is the protector of Lebanon. And in fact, while it's not really protecting Lebanon, what it is doing is serving the interests of the Ayatollahs and the mullahs in Iran 1,000 kilometers to the east. So what's happening is the people of Lebanon are paying a price for this radical jihadi Shiite ideology that they're not part of. I think they understand that, and if Hezbollah crosses certain red lines, which it's getting darn near, all of Lebanon will pay a massive price because of Hezbollah. I think the bottom line is that we need to get Hezbollah away from our border, about 10 kilometers away. We need to do it by force if necessary. If possible, obviously it would be better by diplomatic means.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like a sustainable situation to have tens of thousands of Israelis evacuated from the north while Hezbollah remains near full strength. And by the way, so people know, again, you served in an elite Israeli Special Forces unit, also served in the Israeli reserves, and still do, by the way. You've been in Lebanon. You've been on missions against Hezbollah. Give our viewers a sense of what Hezbollah stands for. We know they stand for the destruction of Israel, but dig a little deeper for us on their genocidal ideology so that people know this is a threat that ultimately must be dealt with.
You're right. I did have the privilege of fighting and killing Hezbollah fighters, quite a few of them in the 90s, and later on in the Second Lebanon War in 2006. Hezbollah is based on a very radical jihadi ideology whose goal ultimately is to create Islamic State across the entire world, but starting Middle East, Europe, North Africa, and that's what they want to achieve. They are, in fact, a proxy of Iran. They serve Iran's ideology. They get about $1 billion a year for Iran. When Iran is packed with money, they get more. When Iran is low on money, they get less. That's why any economic sanctions on Iran weaken all of its proxies, including Hezbollah, and that's why we encourage the American administration to ratchet up those sanctions and certainly not relieve those sanctions, because more money to Iran is more money to all of these terror groups across the Middle East, and it's more American soldiers who pay a price, Israeli soldiers, Israeli citizens, and innocent people around the world. Hezbollah operates all across the world, not only in the Middle East.
There is a lot of positive news as well, and one positive development over the past few years that you saw up close as Prime Minister were the Abraham Accords. How are the Abraham Accords bearing fruit? And look, we mentioned April 13th. The Saudis participated, helping to intercept some of those incoming Iranian projectiles. Not an Abraham Accords member, but it shows you the increasing ties between Israel and the Sunni Arab world. Can you talk more about the positives of the Abraham Accords and the impact that's had on Israel and the region?
The Abraham Accords are vital for the entire region, not only for Israel, because the Abraham Accords are basically an alliance of the reasonable countries in this region to push back on this big wave of radical Islam, whether it's Iranian radical Islam, meaning Shiite, or radical Sunni Islam, which is the Muslim Brotherhood and its affiliates. So this is necessary for everyone, for the Saudis, for the Emirates, for Jordan, for Egypt, because all these countries are being threatened by the same wave of radical Islam. That's why the Abraham Accords are so vital. And the second dimension is, of course, the economic one, which is amazing. There's a lot of great stuff going on between us and our partners. They, though, are feeling a lot of pressure from the street because Al Jazeera is sort of brainwashing their own people against them. So we gotta win. That's the most important thing, to just win. It's not impossible. It's Hamas. We can certainly defeat Hamas, and we got to do it as quickly as possible.
Hey, you have a high-tech background. In addition to politics and special forces for the IDF, can you talk more about how Israel continues to be a leader in high-tech, in science, in innovation, in breakthroughs that is blessing the entire world?
Israel is just always steaming with young entrepreneurs that are starting up companies in the technology fields. We have a very go out and get stuff done approach that I guess is to some degree embedded in us throughout our military service, because you have young men and women at a very young age assuming huge responsibility. So when you come out of the army, let's say at the age of 23, 24, you feel that you can do anything because you've already done so much in the military. The same goes for thousands and thousands of young entrepreneurs. So folks here in Israel like building companies, starting up stuff, not necessarily building a slow career in a big company. They'd rather build their own company.
I was so struck in February during my most recent visit to Israel by Generation Z in Israel. Here in the United States, Generation Z gets criticized pretty heavily for a lot of reasons. But the youngest generation in Israel right now, former Prime Minister, I'm thinking 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds, what just a strong, mature generation that right now, like you once did as a young man, are fighting Hamas face-to-face in the trenches, in the tunnels of Gaza. Can you talk about the younger generation in Israel and why what we've seen since October 7th in them is so encouraging for Israel's future?
You're absolutely right. I draw a lot of confidence from these younger people, the younger generation. They are so full of initiative and innovation and just getting stuff done. No whining, no complaining. There's no, they don't get micro-offended or need safe spaces or triggered or all of that nonsense. They go out and do.
What is your vision for Israel going forward? Are you optimistic about the future of the Jewish state?
We got to get this mission done, decimate Hamas, eliminate them, and in parallel, build the strength of this country. Be a country that shows the world how you deal with the toughest problems in the world. My vision for Israel is a strong, proud nation that's solving the most difficult problems that the world is facing, and continuing to do this with our friends. You know, I admire the United States of America, which is an amazing nation, and if you look at its history, time and again, it went and stood up for its values, whether it was World War I, World War II. We are not asking America to fight our wars. We're going to do the job. We are asking America to have our back, to be with us. We're sending the soldiers, but we need that. And I want to use this opportunity to thank the wonderful men and women of the United States of America for being Israel's best friend in the world.
Thanks again to former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett for those great insights. Folks, he may be out of politics now, but we will see what the future holds for Naftali Bennett. He's been a success in everything he's put his hand to, whether it's been business, the IDF, Prime Minister, and more. So it's exciting to see what the future holds for him. Hey, if you like that interview, what you saw from it, that's only part of my full interview with Naftali Bennett. Coming up on Thursday, May 30th, the entire interview, we went for over 30 minutes, will be posted on the Stackscast. It's my brand new weekly podcast. Folks, you can subscribe Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast, you will find the Stackscast. And again, on the May 30th edition of the Stackscast, my full interview with former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett. We've got three legs. What we're doing here, number one, we've got, of course, the Watchman, the YouTube channel here, where we are approaching 1 million subscribers. Number two, we've got the podcast, the Stackscast. And again, where it originally aired, my interview with Naftali Bennett, we've got Stakelbeck Tonight. You see the set here in Dallas-Fort Worth every weeknight, Monday through Friday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, with a re-air at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. If you like what you're hearing every day here on the Watchman YouTube channel, you will love our nightly show on TBN. Check it out, Stakelbeck Tonight. Great guests, important topics, again, for such a time as this. Hey, thanks so much for joining us today here on the Watchman Newscast. Until next time, God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace.
Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.